Welcome to The Change. Today's guest started his career as an interior designer, found himself in the compelling field of filmmaking, launched a film production company and design agency in Athens, Greece. Faced with a Greek financial crisis, decided to move his business to London and continue expanding his knowledge and career. He worked with companies such as Amstel, Levi's, Yokohama, and he has held positions of creative director and design lead for MasterCard and Winpart. He is currently leading the experience design and human-centered design vision for Visa across EMEA region. His work has been exhibited in Bibliothèque Nationale de France, among others. He currently resides in Dubai, and in his free time he uses the design thinking approach to encourage people to live up to more of their potential and to succeed in their dreams and goals. The name of this psychotherapeutic approach is Design by Yourself. Without further ado, I would like to welcome my today's guest, Dimitris Kalogirou.
Very good. You nailed it.
It's good to have you here, Dimitris.
Good to see you, man. Good to see
you. I'm very familiar with your story and I love it, and it's so inspiring, and we had so many interesting conversations throughout our friendship. But I would like to start right there, becoming Dimitris Kalogirou who you are today. You've been through a lot. I think a lot of listeners will be able to empathize with what you will be talking about. From not really feeling you're on the right track to deciding to take over the control of your life. Mm-hmm. Tell us, how did it all go?
Okay, it all started 500 billion years ago. No. So, as with everything else, everything starts from childhood experiences, right? Whatever we experience now as adults and whatever reactions we have towards anything around us always starts from something back in the early childhood. So, as far back as I can remember, I was having a pretty happy life for a kid, pretty normal, even though defining normal is very difficult, because what's normal, right? One memory that I have that I think shaped my vision around what I want to pursue in the future was when I was about 8 years old. I remember playing with my brother and my cousin, and we were in a room of a family member, and suddenly I discovered the diary of that person, right? And I was 8 years old, and it was the first time that first of all, I was cheeky enough to open it and read through the diary. I was always curious. But the thing is that the content of the diary was so shocking to me at the time, because it was the first time that came face to face with really depressed feelings. Really seeing someone very close to me expressing their sadness, their sorrow, the grief at many points, And I think being 8 years of age and coming to terms with this situation, that this thing exists, right? And you're reading that someone who's close to you, who you see him happy all the time, has these feelings of sorrow, you inevitably want to help. So this is something that I haven't shared before, and I think it's something that shaped the way I think about other people in general, and the way that I try to see behind the persona. So, grew up, went to study interior design, then filmmaking, and as you said, I started my own businesses in Greece. Financial crisis, I went to London, and then at some point I received this great offer for the company that I work for now to come and work to Dubai. When I arrived here, the thing is that, okay, let me say something else before. There's this study, as you might know, conducted by Harvard University, right? Mm-hmm. Which concluded in 2015, I think, and followed several people for almost 50 years. And they concluded that the single one factor that determines your happiness is the social circle around you, and how content you are with the people around you and how you feel. So back to Dubai, I arrived to Dubai and I have no one. I had no friends here, no family, nothing. Like many other people, right? Then at the same time, I had some really big issues with my professional life. Mm-hmm. And in parallel, I was facing some personal challenges as well with my relationships, with my friends, with many things at the same time. Mm-hmm. So this led me to a moment of kind of a breakdown, I could say. And when we're talking about breakdowns and when we're talking about depression, it's good if we can clarify the semantics, right? Because we can say that, okay, I wake up, I go to take my car and see that the transmission is broken, and I take it to the mechanic and I'm depressed because I had to pay so much money, right? That's one form of depression that we use in our day-to-day life when we want to explain. There's another level of depression where, for example, you experience the loss of a job or the loss of a loved one. In that case, you will go again into depression, but most of the times, after some weeks or months, you will come out of the tunnel much stronger. Now, there's the third type of depression, which is what we call major depression, which is when you go into the tunnel, but you never go out.
So you stay there.
You stay there and it can be cyclical. So, for example, it can be, some people have what we call SAD, seasonal affective disorder, right? So they get sad during the months of the winter. So that's the form of depression that we need to be really aware of, and we need to understand that depression is not just it's not just something that you can snap out of it, as many people say. Because many people say that, okay, yeah, how can you do like that? We're all depressed. I have this, I have that. But again, it's about the semantics that we discussed a bit earlier. What do you mean when you say depression? And when it comes to this form of depression, we have to understand that depression is a biological disorder with a genetic component and with early experience, life memories, and So there are several levels when it comes to major depression. The first one is called anhedonia. Anhedonia, Greek word, of course, right? Hedonism.
Hedonism. What has hedonism to do with depression?
Well, it has to do with the opposite of hedonism, right? Anhedonia is the absence of hedonism. It's basically the absence
enjoying life.
For enjoying life, yeah. So basically, you don't feel any pleasure in life. You cannot enjoy a beautiful sunset. Let's say you can observe. Let's say you are in a relationship and everything goes nicely, but you cannot enjoy being in the relationship. So this is anhedonia. The second one is grief. When you constantly grieve about something that might have happened 10 years ago, right?
Or living in the past. Yeah.
Living in the past, exactly. Then the other level is guilt. When you feel guilty and shame about things that you have done or things that have happened, and you always blame yourself about it, and you cannot get out of this whirlpool, right? The other step, where things become a bit more complicated and dangerous, is self-injury. That's one of the main components of major depression, and this is the number one leading cause, along with accidents, when it comes to teenage mortality. So when a teenager dies, basically it's either by accident or suicide. And the last one is called psychomotor retardation. And what this means basically is when you see depressed people and they're exhausted to do anything, they cannot even take this and go and wash it.
There's not that will for moving.
There's no will, there's no motivation, there's no power there. It's just you are in a mode of kind of a vegetative mode, right?
Just waiting for the day to pass by. Right?
Yeah, exactly like that. So these are the semantics.
So going back to Dubai.
Back to Dubai, exactly. So back then, I was feeling many of these things, right? I was living in many of these conditions, and it was hard. I cannot say that it was an easy period of my life, but what dragged me out of this situation was something that you might be familiar of, called dopamine.
Familiar, but not fully knowledgeable.
Not fully knowledgeable. That's great, because we'll use it, I think, in the later stage of this discussion. So let's clarify something.
It's great to explain it for the viewers as well.
Let's clarify some things about dopamine, because we know and we have heard that you get dopamine by scrolling through your phone and all these things. So we talk about certain levels of depression: anhedonia, grief, guilt, self-injury, and psychomotor retardation. The way the brain works is that you get one signal from one neuron to the other through something that is called synapses. Synapse is basically something like a dead space. So one neuron sends a neurotransmitter to the other neuron, and this is how our brain communicates information. Now, scientists have found that the absence of a neurotransmitter, which is called norepinephrine, has to do with the psychomotor retardation that we discussed. The absence of another neurotransmitter, which is called serotonin, has to do something with the grief and the guilt that we discussed. And the absence of dopamine has to do with anhedonia, so with this thing of not being able to feel pleasure, right?
Does this mean that you can medically, by analyzing which type of
neurotransmitter?
You're lacking, you can define basically the background of your depression?
It's not that you can define the background of your depression, but psychiatrists can give you proper medication based on your history and based on those chemicals. Because there was a huge debate during the 50s, 60s until the 80s of which neurotransmitter is more, let's say, active for depression, but actually it's all of them. And there are about 100 neurotransmitters, but anyway, let's not go into that. So what got me out of the situation was the fact that I found a way to go after dopamine without at the time me knowing about it, right? I didn't know anything about these things, by the way, back then. So, how dopamine works? Let's discuss this for a bit. If I give you a reward out of nowhere, we'll see that your dopamine levels will rise.
Because of the surprise?
Because you got the reward and you have the excitement of the reward, right? Now, if we change this experiment and if I introduce the anticipation of reward, meaning that how was the experiment designed by the scientists? A light goes on, you have to perform an action, like press a lever or something, and then you get the reward, right? In that scenario, when do you think dopamine comes?
Before you press it.
It comes when the light goes on. Because you see the light, you know what you want, you know what you have to do, you know what you will get. So the minute you see the light, dopamine levels go up.
But it's basically in the core of training even in animals, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's basic reactions to some visual signs.
Yeah, exactly like that. Now, when things become even more interesting, is when you introduce the word maybe into the equation. And what do I mean by that? So the scientists, they did the same experiment, light, lever, reward, but now they were giving the reward only 50% of the time. And what happens then?
Excitement.
You see the dopamine level go through the roof. It's unbelievable.
That's like gambling.
What I was about to say later, right? It's exactly how gambling works, right? It's not about the reward, it's about the anticipation.
But it's not 50-50, it's 51-49, right? In gambling.
Well, maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's less than that, but the participant doesn't know it. He thinks that there's some, I wear my lucky socks, I have my lucky whatever underwear, I'll win. Anyway, so this is how dopamine works. And if we take it now and we think, okay, maybe, the word maybe, the component maybe into gambling means that you get 49-51 chances of winning, right? If that's a very optimistic case. Now, how do you translate maybe to an interaction? This is why Facebook and Instagram, by the way, are so successful, right? The word maybe is a simple scroll.
Maybe I'm going to see something.
Maybe I'm going to something. Maybe there's something. Maybe this. Maybe that.
Amazing when you think
so you scroll down. You have introduced the component maybe into the dopamine system, and it goes crazy. That's why you see people scroll.
And you get addicted to the actual scrolling, right?
Yeah, because there's this component of anticipation and of maybe.
Anticipation plus maybe.
Maybe
you get your dopamine.
Dopamine through the roof.
Through the roof.
Exactly.
So what was your path to getting dopamine without knowing all of these things?
Exactly. So back then I didn't know any of these things, and I had no plan basically. But what I realized was that I was in a situation where there was nothing I could do at the time and there was no one around to help me. So I'm a bit stubborn in general, right? Many of my friends will agree with that. So I thought, no man, I need to do it myself. I need to find a way to get out of this situation on my own.
After all, you're a designer, right? You need to design.
You need to design.
Design a way out.
Design a way out. And when you're a designer, right, and you have a brief from a client, you don't know what the end goal is going to look like. You just take the pen and start with a line, then do another line, then you throw the paper away, you start again, but you don't know where the thing is going to lead you. So back then I was being sent from the company I work for to other global organizations to help them innovate, to help them become more innovative when it comes to the services or products. And we're using a very framework methodology which is called design thinking, as you know. So what is design thinking? Let's say a couple of words about that. During the 70s, there was these huge corporations like IBM, Dell, Xerox, and they were really baffled by how companies like Apple can come out of a garage, because this is how Apple became famous, and many other companies of the time. So
at least that's what they say.
Okay, that's what they say.
And then my rich uncle died.
And then what?
And then my rich uncle died.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, the framework is that some professors from Stanford University, they were hired by these big companies to analyze how companies like Apple emerge. And they saw something really interesting. They saw that those companies, they do not follow a waterfall approach where the boss gives the order to the subordinate and then it falls down. Instead, they do something different. Instead, they go and they identify an opportunity in the market, then they define the problem that exists, then they develop a solution, and then they get feedback. Once they get feedback, they identify an opportunity through feedback. They reframe the problem, they develop a new solution, and then they get new feedback. So they continue to do this circle throughout time, and this is how companies like Apple became so successful. Because it's not like the boss saying, I know best, you'll do this and that's it. It's like getting feedback from the basis and go in a circle of reassessment and iteration again. So this whole process has some certain tools, the design thinking tools. So back then I thought, okay, basically I go to big organizations and big companies and I help them become innovative with the use of certain tools and methods. What will happen if I take the same methods and from the business level I take them to the individual level and apply them to me? Will it work? I didn't know.
So basically follow the same steps that the businesses were doing, right?
Yeah, exactly the same steps. And I saw that it worked. It started making me feel better. I was having a purpose. That's the thing, and that's the anticipation, and that's the dopamine. That's the reward. The purpose that you have in life. So I started having a purpose.
How difficult was that, finding the purpose at the time? How long did it take you? If you can tell me a bit more about that process from, okay, you realize, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I want to move to a place where, I know what I'm doing, I know why am I doing it, I feel comfortable with myself. This process of testing, feedback, iterations, how long did it take you? Can you give me a bit more light on that part?
It never finishes.
Never finishes.
It never finishes. Because when you reach the goal that you thought you wanted, then what you immediately realize is that the bar has been raised a bit higher. So it's all relative. It's not that you reach a certain point and say, okay, now I have everything, now I'm at the top of the mountain, I'm, I don't know, whatever, tranquil, I'm do my meditation and I'm the most calm person. No, it doesn't work like that. You reach something, you feel the excitement, you get the reward, but then you want something else.
But exactly, if you put the dots together now about what you were saying, anything that you do in life, whether it's you feel lost with yourself, or you feel lost with your career, or you feel lost with your business, you don't necessarily need to reach the stage where you're not lost anymore. But as soon as you see the light at the end of the tunnel, or your track that you're going to take, and you feel that, okay, now I have a plan of what I'm going to do, you start feeling a lot better.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's instant, right?
That's instant, but along the journey, you will definitely feel that you're losing your way, right? And if you think about it, you're into boats, right?
Yeah.
And have you ever tried to, I don't know, drive a yacht? You don't say drive, right? You say something else.
Oh, you can say
Be the captain of a yacht,
drive is fine.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you successfully reach from point A to point B? If you
program it.
Okay, old school. Forget about
You
the
follow the
GPS.
compass, right?
You follow the compass, but then you adjust your sails to the wind.
Yeah.
There's no yacht that goes from point A to point B in a straight line.
Yeah.
You need to go like that if the wind's like this. Then the wind changes, so you need to go like this. So you do
Yeah.
zigzag until you reach your destination.
Exactly.
The thing is that when my point is there, my goal is there, but my sails make me look that direction. You might feel that you're not going towards your goal, you're not doing anything for your destination, but you're actually doing. But you're moving in a way that teaches you things, because at the end of the day, when you are after a goal, you are not what you become when you attain the goal. Your goal means nothing to you. What is important is who you become along the way of attaining the goal. So,
It's going to be quoted.
you think?
This is a good one, yeah.
Sounds nice. So that's the way you have to think about it. It's not like you do something, you start something, you find your passion, and immediately everything is solved. No. Then you have to put a lot of work in it. Dedication, remove the distractions, remove the noise, be able to sacrifice things, and be able to manage your own desires. And you lose things. You definitely lose things along the way, but you see that the things that you lost were the things that were keeping you back in the first place. And this is where the difference between the self and the ego exists. So imagine it this way. When we're talking about your authentic self and your true self and all this cool terminology that psychologists, coaches use and stuff like that, what is the meaning of your true self? You can't think about it like that. Your true self is who you were in the past, what you are in the present, and what you can potentially become in the future. Your ego is who you think you are, and who you think you are drags you back. It doesn't allow you to spread out and become what you can potentially become. And one of the main reasons is because your ego has this need for approval, and your need for approval makes you very risk averse, makes you fear rejection, and makes you fear failure. But you cannot progress without understanding that there are some parts of you that are shit.
Yeah.
Right? They're not helpful. They're not so you need to let these parts of you go, and that's how you move along.
Which is not as easy as it sounds.
Never.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
But having the awareness of it is a first step.
Having the awareness of it is definitely the first step, because what does it mean being aware of something? If you think about it, okay, you hear all this cool, be self-aware and all that stuff, right? But what does it actually mean? I'm talking to you, but at the same time I'm aware that this thing exists here, this thing exists there, but it does not distract me from talking to you. So I'm aware of these things, but at the same time I can perform another task. The same thing is when you talk about your awareness of your desires, for example. It works the same way. Being aware of them, not indulging them, keep your track.
Yeah.
Not easy, but you can train yourself to do that.
Yeah. So I'm aware now of the ringtone in the background.
Yeah, aware of the ringtone in the
But
background.
I'm trying to focus on you. There is an interesting thing that I captured from the very beginning. You were 8 years old. You were 8 years old when you read the diary, and you were only 8 years old, and you already got that whole. It strikes you what you read there about depression, about people feeling weak, bad. You were only 8 years old, and that almost influenced your whole life path, career later on.
One of the things that
One of the
influenced
things.
it was also this. Yeah.
But it's interesting that it happened when you were only 8 years old.
Mhm.
So you arrived to Dubai. It was a nice job. It was probably back at the time, nice salary, worldwide. You can say that on that kind of part of your life was sorted out, but you were still not feeling really in place. And then you started working on yourself. And as the output of your own work on yourself, you designed a methodology, psychotherapeutical methodology, called Design Thyself.
Yeah.
So while you're working on your day job in one of the largest companies in the world, which is at the same time very creative, and you have a chance to express your design skills.
Yeah.
You're applying your design skills on helping people accomplish, or at least set them on the right path to accomplish some of the things that you did. What keeps you busy these days?
Okay, first of all, I don't help people accomplish what I did, right? I guide people to find what they really want and to design a path towards that. What keeps me going? Is that the question?
What keeps you going is a good question as well. What keeps you going, but I assume what keeps you going is the passion for it.
Yeah.
But what these days, what you're working on?
Okay, so let me tell you about my schedule, right? So I wake up in the morning, I do my morning meditation, then I jump and I do my work for my morning job. I'm dedicated to it until 6 o'clock, 6:30, whatever this time might be. And then I will either have sessions with my private clients. Some days of the week I'm finishing a certification for psychotherapy now. At the same time, I'm trying to build my business and scale it up by now designing an online course for Design Thyself. I go to sleep around 1 o'clock. Next time, repeat. Yeah, but the thing is here, okay, we're talking about Design Thyself and how you design yourself in a way to achieve the things that you want to achieve, right? And I told you that it's an iterational journey. And I told you that I haven't finished my iteration. It's always going and going. And what I notice now, which is good to also admit and be aware of, is that because I'm so dedicated to what I do, because I have no personal time, basically, I have no personal time, right? I started feeling the impact of it quite severely. So one of the main components that you need to take into account is that you need to create those moments of playfulness. And when I say playfulness, I don't mean a game that has a purpose of winning. Because that's another thing that I would say keeps me behind, that I always want to win, I always want to be better than the previous version of myself. But that's not the right mindset, right? So even me, I'm trying now to adapt and work on it. Yeah, exactly. So playfulness is about being able to enjoy an interaction, a situation, a book, when you walk the dog, when you play something, when you cook with your partner, for example. It's these moments where you lose the sense of time and you are in deep into the creativity and the mindfulness of the moment.
It reminds me of a book that I recently read called Ikigai.
Oh, very nice.
Does it have any relations to that methodology and the way of thinking?
It's not about methodology. It's more about finding an activity that just takes your mind away.
So you can actually relax.
You can relax.
In a very busy and noisy world.
It's the same way when you go to the gym, right? You cannot go to the gym 24/7, pumping iron. It doesn't work. Your muscle will be depleted. You have to have these periods of rest, doing nothing, so that you can actually help your muscles grow.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting introduction to the later topics that we'll cover. I'm familiar with. I can't say I'm fully familiar, but I understand the methodology behind Design Thyself. But there are two main phases that you're going through. One that is covering the past, and three.
Deconstruct the past. So basically, be able to know thyself. Another Greek aphorism.
Be able to know thyself.
Know thyself. Yeah. So let me talk about Greece a bit, right?
Use the opportunity.
Let me use the opportunity, like the father in my Greek fat wedding, So, in Delphi, there's the famous temple of Apollo, where Pythia used to sit and give all these predictions and what will happen in the future. Delphi used to be called the belly button of the earth by the ancient Greeks. Now, that temple there has this, how do you call it? The top bit of the temple has 3 scriptures. Above all, it's know thyself. The other one is nothing to excess. And the third one is surety brings ruin. So first of all, all wisdom starts when you're actually able to know yourself. And this is the first component of design thyself as well. Understand and deconstruct your past. What does this mean? We all perform our day-to-day tasks based on our emotional reactions. We do not usually respond. Only 5% of what we do every day is response. Everything else is reaction. And this is being guided by your early childhood traumas and your early childhood memories. So we have to deconstruct and understand what is there that is triggering those reactions. What is there that you find unhelpful?
So basically your whole today's personality is built on the memories and the experiences that you had throughout your whole life, starting very, very early in your childhood.
I would say differently. I would say that your personality now is the defense mechanisms that you developed through your early childhood experiences that you now call yourself.
Your personality, yourself.
Yeah.
So understanding that part of your life is kind of key in knowing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because, as I said, what we experience from each other is our defense mechanisms. That's how we interact with each other's defense mechanisms, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like that. And when you're able to understand, okay, why do I feel angry in this situation? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel threatened? Why do I feel X, Y, Z? And then you're able to track it back in time and see, okay, this experience created all this chain reaction within me that makes me now react in a way that I don't find helpful and not others around me find helpful, and doesn't allow me to respond in a way that I find helpful.
It's unbelievable how everything is connected, and how majority of the people, starting from myself, is really thinking about it only on the surface, not even managing to deep dive and think about these things.
Yeah, I was not aware of these things either, right? I mean, as you go along and as you start understanding how your brain works and how your body works and how your biology is connected with your psychology and everything, it's an amazing new universe. It's unbelievable. When we're talking about trauma, you do not respond to the present moment. You react to something that happened in the past.
Yeah.
Right? And you choose the most painful explanation to explain someone else's behavior because you react about something that happened in the past. So that's just something to illustrate that from something very small, we can arrive to the very first category of design itself, which is deconstruct your past and understand your defense mechanisms and how to train them so that you can have a better present.
That's amazing. How, on a simple example, how a very, very minor detail or situation in your day can trigger an emotion that is connected like to 30 years ago what happened in your life.
That's how brain works, man. That's how brain works.
So that's the first.
That's the first part.
First part.
Deconstruct your past. The second part is understand the present. Mm-hmm. So basically, you have the knowledge of deconstructing the past. You have the knowledge of how your defense mechanisms work, and you can branch out and see, okay, exactly like we saw, this affect this or that affect the other thing, right? So you understand and you map out, okay, these things from the past, my defense mechanisms, affect me in the present with X, Y, Z ways. That's the second step. Once you know how it affects you in the present, then you start designing how your future would look like. By knowing thyself, you end up in designing thyself. The first part is the ego, the things that keep you back. The last part is who you can potentially become. And that's what I'm trying to do with Design Thyself, basically, because I have been a client for coaches. I have been a client for psychoanalysts. I've tried many methods. they all work great under certain circumstances, right? Coaches do a great job, psychologists do a great job, but the thing is that you see that coaches, for example, they focus more on the mindset of growth, the mindset you can do it, the mindset of designing the future. But they do not focus on, okay, you have this concept in your mind of what success means, and this is your starting point, let's say, with a coach, and then you design the future based on that. But your idea of success, where does it come from?
Yeah, how did you shape it?
It comes from some defense mechanisms that you perceive something as success to cover those traumatic memories and moments because you want to be perceived as something or someone or something more than what you are, right? So let's go back then. Let's go back to your past, which is what psychoanalysis does. And psychoanalysis does not go necessarily to how you design the future. So what I try to do with design the self is to combine these two schools of thought, some from one and some from the other, and offer something which might be of use to some people.
That's interesting. So you were saying that you combined science, psychotherapy, but this is a
big word.
Yes, but it's a professional scientific understanding of a human being and how our brain operates, with some of the techniques and methodologies that today's very popular coaches are using.
Along with design thinking.
Along with design thinking, to
Yes.
kind of put it under the umbrella of design thinking and follow the proven methodology for any type of problem solving, which is working on the solution, prototype of a solution, testing it out, collecting the feedback, based on the feedback, improving your solution and getting into
Roughly speaking, yes.
into a loop. But what's interesting and what I can see happening is that we're living in this super connected age. And I think there is more coaches than ever around us. And we are so plugged in, right, into everything that is going on, and there is this overall vibe around us, especially people living in cities like Dubai or London or Singapore or New York, where there's this huge expectation from people, and that's, I have a feeling it's driven strongly by a lot of coaches around us. So you're putting a lot of pressure on people now. You need to be successful, you need to, earn for your family, you need to be out there, you need to do vlogs, you need to be on social media, people need to see you. While you're looking around you and everyone is living this perfect life on the social media channels. While majority of the people, it's rare to find people who are really bought into their passion and they're sure I'm on the right track, I'm enjoying my life to the fullest. So you have a lot of people who are feeling lost, and then there is a lot of pressure around them that they need to succeed, they need to be successful. How does one pause for a second, unplug, figure out what they need to do, and then set them on the right track to actually achieve something that could be called personal success, not related to
Okay, you're touching many things here. Let me understand. So first we have the coaching industry and the go, you can do it, all these things that creates. Second, we have the distractions
that are caused partially by them, partially by all other people who are out there.
How to be focused and how to be.
So while you're under an enormous pressure of the society and the social norms, you're under an enormous pressure. At the same time, you're feeling lost.
Yeah.
So
okay,
it's hard to perform under pressure, right? In any sport.
Forget the word perform.
Okay.
Because let me ask you this, right? Let's figure out the first part of the question first. And that's a question to you, another experiment. How do you value yourself? Based on who you are, or based on how productive you are? How do you think you value yourself? Based on who you are, or based on how productive you are?
But I think that at this stage of my life, I'm somewhere in between.
Okay.
Heading towards valuing, what was the second one? I used to value myself a lot on how productive I am.
Okay.
Now I'm thinking I'm getting more towards the second one that you said,
who you really are.
Who I really am.
So what you're describing at the beginning, this whole culture of growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the coaches telling you, yeah, you can do it, do the hustle, do the work, and it will happen, and all this pumped up motivational speaking things, right? If you think about it historically and sociologically, where did the culture of the coaches emerge? The US, right? What is the US? A growth-oriented society. I don't want to go into the capitalistic whatever, blah, 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 but it's a growth-oriented society.
Yeah.
But this has a lot of implications when it comes to structuring yourself around concepts like that. Mozart said that the most important part of melody is the pauses in between the notes. You cannot have music without the pauses. You play a piece of music, a piano, without the pauses, you don't understand anything, right? It's the pauses that give essence and feeling to the entire piece of music, right? If we don't have these pauses in our lives, if we don't take time to nurture relationships, if we don't take time to take care about ourselves, you cannot be growing and growing all the time. This is not sustainable. It's something that the Western culture is currently, so much into this thing, but that's a very toxic approach of life. We see the Steve Jobs and the Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks of this world, and we want to be like them, right? Or if not, you just scroll your Instagram and Facebook and you see all these gorgeous looking people and the amazing lives and the money, and you feel as if you come last to a race.
A lot of people are currently, you said it's a constant race towards success, race towards career, race towards family, race towards pension, race towards, everyone is racing, but actually nobody wants to hurry up, So there's this whole race going on and expectations are set, while people who didn't still figure out what they want to do with their lives, they need to have a break, or they need to stop for a second. As you said, that music is, there is no melody without pauses.
That's different. If you want to find what your passion is a different approach than just press the pause button into this growth culture, right? If you're asking how to find your passion, then that's a different question. And with that question, how we go about, I would say, if you want to find something, if you want to find your passion, you need to try as many things as you can possibly do within short amount of time. So let's say that if you want to open a restaurant and you have no idea about restaurant business, you won't go and open a restaurant next day. Go and speak to someone that has a restaurant. Go and speak to someone that cleans the dishes. Go and speak to someone and see how's the logistics around the restaurant. Opening a restaurant is not about greeting people, taking them to the table. It has so many other logistics, and you might think that this is my passion, to run a restaurant, but if you go actually into the business, you find out, oh, that's not what I expected, right? So to understand and to find your passion, you cannot expect to sit on your couch, scroll through Instagram, and expect to find your passion because you read an inspirational quote and now you want to become a yoga teacher or a life coach, right? It doesn't work like that. You need to go and try things. Only when you try, you have a taste of what this thing might look like. So, wanting to find your passion equals go and try, go out and try as many things as you can.
Yeah, it sounds logical. Where there is a clash, this is probably the answer that most of the people who ask you would expect. But they're not doing it. Now, the reason why they're not doing it is,
I don't know. What is your reason?
Well, my kind of theory or thinking about it is because of this whole race going on and expectations and social media and the current idealistic picture of ideal life, not a lot of career paths that they have in front of them are fitting into that ideal life.
Okay, let's define something here. Mm-hmm. A career path is different than passion. A career path
ideally should be on the same track.
A career path and passion should be on the same track because of all these entrepreneurs that come along and say that to you. Mm-hmm. 100 years ago, this thing didn't exist.
So you have your career, and then you have on the side perhaps you're passionate about painting.
You have your career that enables you to do your passion. If you can convert your passion into a career, that's a whole different domain. Very happy if you can do that. Amazing. But most people, they prefer the stability of the career, and they don't go exploring their passion, because exploring your passion and making it profitable is the riskier thing you can do. It's not easy, man. People see it as something very easy, and people do it on social media, and they have millions, and they show you how to do it, and all these free webinars. I'll show you how to set an Amazon store, and you make millions. No, they make millions because people like us will go and find out how to make millions.
Yeah, they're the only ones making millions.
Yeah, so having a career path does not necessarily mean following your passion.
Yeah, but if you need to spend majority of your life on job, 8 to 10 hours daily, it would be cool if you're also passionate about it.
It would be amazing. It would. You know, it's the same thing as telling me that married couples should keep the light and the spark of love and excitement and being in love, you know, for 30, 40 years of marriage. Can it happen? No. It cannot happen.
Yeah.
By definition, it cannot happen. But we have been conditioned because of the media for the past, and even this concept of a marriage full of passions for 50 years. It's very recent. It's only 50 years old. Before that, it didn't exist, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't strive for that. Definitely you should. But you shouldn't have it as a given. You shouldn't have it as something normal and as something to be expected. No, you need to work hard for these things. They do not just appear in front of you like that.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, and it's beautiful if one can have that kind of a sense when approaching to all of these media channels and being plugged in. So being plugged in while keeping the sense is a challenge. I guess you're achieving it. Can you say that you're handling the...
I can say that everything works in circles, right? You see, everything comes from nature. You see the moon, right? It's full and bright and beautiful. Then 15 days later, there's no moon. Then 15 days later, there's a full moon again. Same thing with life. You cannot expect your life to be on a constant mode of motivation, of passion, of this. No, you'll have your downs, you'll have your ups, but you know where you're heading. You have set your long-term vision, and your micro actions in each day, they are pointing towards that direction. You will have your downs, you will have your ups. It doesn't mean that you have your downs and now everything goes to waste. No. Yeah. You are aware, you make space for these feelings to exist. What is, at the end of the day, many people have depression because of that, by the way, right? Because of they cannot find their passion, they cannot find what they want to achieve in life.
Well, most of the reasons why I'm asking these questions is because I'm living in the society where I have a lot of examples around me from totally different backgrounds in the same or a similar struggle, and I think that's the sickness of today, that didn't exist in that volume before.
I don't know if it's a sickness. It's definitely a sign that our society is heading towards this direction. Not heading, so we're there, right? We're there. But again, what are you trying to achieve? That's why when we say deconstruct your past, it's really helpful. What are you trying to get out of this? And if you come to me and you say, okay, I want to find my passion, my first question would be, who is asking? I'm not mean like Vuk, right? What part of yourself?
Do you really want to find the passion, or that's again because you think that's a thing of today, or it's a cool thing to have your passion?
Yeah, is it something because you are influenced from social media, or is it something that you really need? And again, if you need it, where is it based on? Is this what you need to do, or is it something else? And there's these hidden problems that we call, for example, in design thinking, we call them wicked problems, where we don't have enough data to understand what the problem is, and we think it's something else there. So it all depends. Does this answer your question?
Well, kind of, yeah. I think it's a big question, and I think there is a lot of, we could talk about it for days, especially when you talk about things from the past, and in the picture comes in some kind of existential fears that you have, for your life. I'm sure that you can connect it to your past. People living in Dubai, for example, today during the crisis, a lot of them, for a lot of them, life changed overnight, right? And now staying calm under pressure to make the right next step. Should I stay or should I go? Should I change a career? Was this the right choice or not? Families are in question. I think that making peace with yourself, understanding yourself, following what you are trying to help people, knowing yourself and figuring out what you need to do is key, is the essential, right? That's the starting point before getting into a panic mode and trying to, that's survival. You're talking a lot about fight and flight, right?
You will get into a panic mode inevitably if you're facing a situation that you're losing your job, and that's serious stuff, right? It's not easy to deal with. Your whole lifestyle changes, your whole pattern of living changes. So what you need to do in situations where you find uncertainty, where uncertainty is present, is you need to create as much structure as you can. And with simple daily things, like for example, wake up every morning the same time. That's really crucial because it regulates your body's rhythm, the biological clock. And second, have a very good breakfast. This is very simple that I say, but you cannot imagine how many people they feel negative emotions because they did not. They starve themselves, right? They starve themselves. Yeah. So have a good breakfast full of protein and fat. That's the best thing I can tell you when it comes to breakfast. Why? Because if you don't, then the insulin levels in your body will deplete the sugar from your blood, and you can only reset that when you go back to sleep. So if you don't have enough food, enough nutrition, your body goes into a stress mode inevitably. So you will feel stressed even though
you don't know why you're feeling stressed.
Yeah, exactly. So now add to this component the fact that you just lost your job. Your system goes crazy. You get into a mode that your whole body is fighting internally, and psychologically you feel all these effects that you cannot explain. Yeah. So create structure even in those difficult moments. Sleep, good sleep. Wake up every day at the same time. Rhythm. Yeah. Good breakfast, fat and protein. Exercise every day. Opioids get released in your brain. Exercise, and then start doing something that will orient you and that will point you towards the direction you want to go. Create a structure around that.
So it's again coming back to the topic of make a plan. Having a plan, having a path that is immediately going to impact you positively, feeling better about where you're heading.
It goes back to dopamine release, what we discussed at the beginning, right? You don't, if there's a plan, you don't feel the dopamine release when you get the reward. You feel the dopamine release when you know that you start the plan, you start to implement the plan. Yeah. This is where you feel the most dopamine release, right? So again, having a long-term plan is one thing you have to do, and then take this long-term plan and design your day in a way that will direct you towards that long-term goal. Yeah. So dissect this big goal into smaller chunks
and measure.
Not measure, just do. Go and do the small chunks every day. So,
but doesn't the small rewards? Okay, if you make a plan where you want to be or what you want to do, and then you have your daily habits. Is there any there is some satisfaction in achieving these small goals along the way and feeling that you're on the right track?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you create a daily reward system that is, small chunks here and there once you achieve the day. But the thing is that you need to schedule your day in a way that your calendar is not your tyrant. Because what many people do, and what I struggle with actually, is was to design my calendar in a way that I don't feel pressure by it. Right? So most of the time we have the calendar and we say, okay, let's fill it with all the things we have to do. But that's not the right way to do it. You have your calendar, of course you have the things that you have to do, definitely, but then you design the day that you want to live that will orient you to your long-term goal. So then you can see how your micro action will lead to the macro result. Right? For example, same thing as why people who smoke do not quit easily. It's kind of similar along with nicotine, and yes, okay. If I tell you that's a cigarette, if you smoke, you get one puff and you'll die. Will you do it? No, if you know that you will actually die.
Yeah.
Right? But because people who smoke, they do not see the end result until it's too late.
Yeah, they are doing it either way. Yeah.
So the calendar is, we say with the opposite effect now. So have your micro rewards, have your day scheduled in a way that you want to live that day that will lead you to your macro goal.
Yeah. Oh, makes sense. You said it lately, and since the whole crisis started, first of all, you offered free support to anyone who felt anxious, who felt stressed about the situation, and you had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some of the stories anonymously and situations they've been going through, and how you advise them and how they handle them, and what are some of the...
Okay, I cannot share with you stories.
Yeah. Okay.
But what I can share with you is that none of the people that came to me when I started this free support for COVID-19, none of them were actually feeling stressed about COVID-19. They thought they were feeling stressed and anxiety about COVID-19. But the same way we did our experiment, we saw that your reaction for anger and sadness is not situated in the present moment with your dispute with your colleague, but it's situated in the past where you felt unworthy about something. Same way, when someone is feeling anxious about something, it's not usually about this something in the present moment. It's that this something triggers a memory from the past. So this, what I can tell you for sure, that 100% of the people that came to me, none of them actually had COVID-19 anxiety.
So the message is basically whoever is currently feeling anxious or stressed about the current situation, actually that feeling has nothing to do with the actual situation today. It's connected to...
If you lost a loved one because of COVID-19,
yes,
then it's a different message, right?
Yeah.
But there are many people that feel threatened and they feel under constant mode of fight or flight because of COVID-19 without any impact around them. For this particular segment, their reaction, their extreme sense of anxiety is not situated in the present moment. It's a reaction because of something that occurred in the past. This we can say.
Yeah. Obviously COVID-19 2020 brought us something that nobody expected. I think everyone was super excited about the year and then slept.
Yeah.
And I read this morning that around 900,000 people will lose their jobs in UAE only. Around 10% of population decrease. Losing the job, how that impacts one person.
That's a big one, man. That's a big one. That's a very big one. So the thing is that we as humans, we have a system in our brain that tracks our social status, which runs on serotonin, right? So when you lose a job, you lose your social status in a way, right? Because you are not where you had anticipated to be within the structure of society. You suddenly lose the ground below your feet and you look down and it's empty, there's nothing there to hold you. So people who lose their jobs can definitely feel this can have this feeling of being lower in society, of being lower to the expectations of society. And this is not something to take lightly, because lower levels of serotonin means that you are more prone to stress, you are more prone to illness. Low levels of serotonin have been coupled with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and anxiety, depression, and so many other diseases, right? So losing a job and losing what is perceived as the social status is something unbelievably damaging and can be traumatic, right? So what we need to know around this domain, right, is that the single most effective thing that can hold us in situations like this is a strong social circle around us. There's nothing more powerful than feeling that you are amongst people who care for you, who love you, who will do for you whatever is needed. That's one thing, to have a strong social structure around you. The other thing is, again, to make sure that you follow a schedule, to make sure that you have some structure in your life, and not that you throw everything away and say, okay, now I lost my job, I don't have appetite for anything. You have to keep yourself on track. Again, regulate your sleep. Food, nutrition, regulate as well. Exercising, all of these things which might sound very typical and very cliche, they actually help. But the most important component is the social structure around you. So yes, it will be difficult for many people. It will be extremely difficult. We haven't even seen the impact of COVID-19 yet. But when it comes to how people who lost their jobs feel, this is exactly as this. This is a really serious situation.
I hope that you all enjoyed. I hope that you picked up good advices from Dimitris. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. It was great.
It was really a pleasure
to discuss with you,
as always. And we'll see you some other time in another episode.
Thank you, man. Thank
Until
you
then, stay with us. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.